Alrighty, so I'm going to do my review for the film Shutter Island. And, if you're a film buff and if you're like me, then you definitely go see this movie because it is a Martin Scorsese picture. And, people who really love movies don't miss some Marty Scorsese film because he is considered to be one of the greatest American filmmakers ever. And you look at his work, and so many of his films are regarded as masterpieces, and considered some of the greatest American films ever made. And I most of his work I absolutely love, and so of course I wasn't going to miss this movie. And but when I first saw the trailer, and I think a lot of people thought this, when you look at it, you would never expect this movie to have been directed by Marty Scorsese. It's just completely out of his comfort zone, I guess you could say. And but all the more interesting, all the more reason to go see something like this, because it's nice to see a director who's known for a certain type of film and then decides to kind of branch out from his box and do something a little bit more creative. And that is definitely the case here. I'm just going to give you a little basic premise on it and talk about some of the actors it's starring. It has a really great ensemble cast full of lots of big names, the main characters being Leo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo, Ben Kingsley. And there's a lot of actors in the film who are pretty big names but have kind of just small parts here and there that aren't really necessarily big parts, but they really make a statement in the film. And examples of that being Emily Mortimer, Michelle Williams, and Patricia Clarkson, who's great, and Jackie Earle Haley, who I absolutely adore. He's one of my favorite actors currently, and I think he's really underrated, so I just had to mention him as a side note. But they all do a wonderful job, and they work together beautifully in the film. And so this movie is about two federal marshals in 1954, and they go to this island, Shutter Island, of course, and they are investigating a missing person because there's this mental institution. And one of the patients escaped. And basically, if I'm going to be even more nerdy than I already am, I'll say it's like Arkham Asylum in Gotham City. It's the same thing here. It's, the worst possible kind of mental institution for the most harmful of the mentally unstable people. And the woman who is has escaped drowned three of her children. So, you know, it's not really it's kind of an unsettling film, and you feel it's very unsettling throughout the entire film. But what's really interesting about it is the main character, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is kind of a very dark character. I think, I'm not really a big fan of Leo DiCaprio, but I think he did a decent job here, mainly because this role is more complex than what I'm usually used to seeing from him. It's more dark and more kind of interesting, and it's interesting to kind of see the layers come off little by little. And you really get to see him start to lose his mind here, and you really don't know what he's thinking, and you don't know what's reality and what isn't. And that to me is very, very interesting. And what I like so much about this movie is how it really dives into the human psyche and really does kind of toy with your emotions. This movie really does remind me of some of my favorite films of all time, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which I think is, one of the greatest Hitchcock films ever made and one of the greatest movies ever made. Also, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and even more recent movies like Mulholland Drive. So you've got some very interesting ideas coming from here. You got very beautiful, dazzling images, but like Vertigo and like The Shining, they're images that you really don't know how to piece them together, things that you don't know what they mean. And honestly, as you're watching the film, really there are scenes where you're thinking, is that character real? Is this scene real? I mean, you really don't know. And that's part of what's so interesting about it. This type of picture is one of those movies where it's important, it's very crucial for the audience to kind of be swept up and not be able to find your bearings and have no idea what you're doing, because you feel like the director is really toying with your mind, and that's great. These kind of movies are perfect for that. And, I've heard some complaints about the movie saying things like, well, Martin Scorsese is using every horror movie cliche or every thriller cliche or whatever. And I would have to disagree with that. I think what he's doing is taking storytelling devices or horror devices, and he is using them in a way that, I mean, he's still very conscious of what he's doing. There's a certain amount of theatricality to what he's doing, but it's not really a parody. It's more like paying homage to some of the older films that kind of have that kind of puzzling, kind of warped reality to it that you really have to figure out for yourself. And I've also heard some complaints about the movie, people saying, well, the ending doesn't really make sense, or it doesn't give you a good central foundation, or you don't really have your bearings. And I think the opposite. I think that the ending was a little bit too neat and a little too tidy. I wish there had been more questions at the end. I wish that it wasn't resolved so well, I guess you could say. Because, you look at Mulholland Drive, movies like that, or Vertigo, The Shining, you watch them, and at the end of the films, you really are kind of confused on, or at least I was, confused on, what just happened there. And it's kind of one of those things where the director leaves it up to you to kind of figure out what's going on, and you kind of have to discover for yourself what was the ending to this film. And I wish I had more of an experience like that towards the end. But regardless, this is a really great movie, and I think that Scorsese has done something really great here. He's got wonderful actors, and it's classic Scorsese. He's known for his very fluid camera movements and for being able to really master the style of, being able to toy with your emotions, I guess you could say, and he does it really well here. And I just think the movie is composed beautifully, even though it may not be his best, and though I had some problems with it. I think it just really works, and you can definitely tell that this is a Martin Scorsese picture. And, I think the movie is really cool because it's got a wonderful score and a very kind of creepy, kind of ominous, yet also, a very ominous, kind of lugubrious feel to it. So it really hits all the marks. It's almost like an Edgar Allan Poe short story or something. It's got a real sense of imagery to it. And I mean, there's just a lot to like here, really. I can't stop saying enough good things about it. And it's very entertaining. He never loses the entertainment value with this movie. So I definitely think that you should go see it. It's definitely worth your time. And although it is a very long movie, didn't look at my watch once, I don't think. So, you really do get wrapped up in it. So I enjoyed it, and I definitely think you should see it. So yeah, so see you guys later.